By every official measure, the economy is fine. Unemployment, 4.3%. GDP, still growing. Consumer spending, strong. And yet 60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. Credit card debt just crossed $1.3 trillion, an all-time record. Personal bankruptcies are up 12% year over year. And consumer confidence has been falling for 3 consecutive quarters. So which is it? Here's the answer nobody in the financial media will say out loud. Both are true, at the same time, on purpose. There's a principle that explains exactly how official numbers can look healthy while the economy people actually live in is falling apart. It has a name. It was identified decades ago, and once you understand it, every economic headline you've ever read will start to look completely different. By the end of this video, you'll know why the unemployment rate, the GDP, and the inflation index are all measuring something slightly different from what they claim to measure, and why that gap is costing you money right now. Let's start with something almost nobody explains clearly. Recessions are always declared retroactively. The National Bureau of Economic Research, the body that officially calls recessions, doesn't announce one while it's happening. They wait 6 to 18 months, gather all the data, and tell you what you already lived through. The 2008 recession started in December 2007. It wasn't officially declared until December 2008, a full year later, after Lehman Brothers had already collapsed. The 2001 dot-com recession began in March, not declared until November, 8 months after, which means you could be living through a recession right now and not know it officially for months. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's the methodology. Keep that in mind as we walk through what the data actually shows. Meet Eleanor. She's employed, she pays her bills on time, she has a small amount in savings. By every official metric, she's fine. Eleanor doesn't feel fine. Her grocery bill is higher than it was 2 years ago. Her rent went up again. She's carrying a credit card balance for the first time in her life, not because she bought something she didn't need, but because one month the math just didn't work out, and then the next month it still didn't. Eleanor is not a statistic of distress. She's a statistic of strength. That's the problem. Before we look at the numbers, you need to understand why they're built the way they are. There's a principle in economics called Goodhart's Law. The idea is simple. The moment a metric becomes a target, it stops being a good metric. Once policymakers start optimizing for a specific number, they stop optimizing for the reality that number was supposed to represent. The unemployment rate was designed to measure how many people who want work can't find it. But once it became the headline number, the system started optimizing for the headline. The GDP was designed to measure economic output, but once it became the target, growth became the goal, not well-being. Goodhart's Law says, measure a thing, and the thing changes. Target a number, and the number detaches from reality. That's the mechanism behind everything you're about to see. Now, let's look at the unemployment rate, 4.3%. On the surface, close to full employment. Here's what that number doesn't tell you. It only counts people who are actively looking for a job, meaning they've applied somewhere in the last 4 weeks. The moment you stop looking, you disappear from the statistic entirely. Right now, 6 million Americans are not in the labor force but say they currently want a job. They're not counted as unemployed. They've simply vanished from the data. The U6 rate, which actually includes discouraged workers and people forced into part-time work, sits at 8%, nearly double the headline, and the jobs being created are not the same quality as the jobs being lost. If one full-time worker gets laid off and takes 2 part-time jobs to survive, the government counts that as 2 jobs added. Net positive, economy growing. Right now, 4.5 million Americans are working part-time because they can't find full-time work. Technically, employed. Financially stretched. Goodhart's Law in action. The unemployment rate is fine. The labor market is not. Now the spending numbers. Consumer spending, strong. The media reports that as confidence, as resilience. Here's what's underneath it. Credit card debt, $1.3 trillion, an all-time record, up 66% since 2021. The average interest rate on those cards? 22%. Historically, Americans saved around 8% of their income. The personal savings rate has now dropped to 4%, its lowest level since before the 2008 financial crisis. People aren't spending more because they're earning more. They're spending more because they're borrowing more. Eleanor's spending looks strong in the data. Eleanor is one unexpected expense away from debt-funded survival. The Federal Reserve found that 37% of Americans couldn't cover a $400 emergency without borrowing or selling something. Not 37% of low-income households, 37% across all income levels. Goodhart's Law, again, consumer spending looks healthy. The finances behind it are not. And it's not just households. Commercial bankruptcies are up 12% year over year, the highest level in over a decade. These aren't reckless companies. Many survived the pandemic, the inflation shock, the tariff disruptions. They made it through all of that. Now they're running out of room because the debt they took on at 1% during the pandemic is coming due at 5% to 6%. Every dollar that used to go into the business now goes to interest payments. They raise prices to compensate, which feeds back into the inflation already squeezing Eleanor's budget. The corporate world and the household world are being squeezed by the same mechanism, from opposite ends. Eleanor doesn't know that. She just knows her grocery bill keeps going up even when the headlines say inflation is under control. Here's the full picture. The Conference Board's leading economic index, designed specifically to predict recessions, has declined for 6 consecutive months entering 2026. Same pattern observed before both the 2001 and 2008 recessions were officially declared. ISM Manufacturing PMI has been below 50, the contraction threshold, for an extended stretch. Credit card delinquencies are at their highest level since 2012. Labor force participation is falling. Job quality is deteriorating. Savings are disappearing. Debt is accelerating. Corporate bankruptcies are rising. This isn't one metric having a bad month. It's what economists call the full constellation of pre-recession indicators, lighting up simultaneously. This isn't one pixel out of place. It's the entire image shifting. One color at a time, so slowly you don't notice until you step back and see what it's become. Remember Goodhart's Law. The unemployment rate isn't measuring how many people who want work can't find it. It's measuring how many people who applied somewhere last week can't find it. The GDP isn't measuring economic well-being. It's measuring output, including Eleanor's credit card debt, which counts the same as a pay raise. The inflation index isn't measuring how much more your life costs. It's measuring a basket of goods that gets quietly adjusted when prices rise too fast. The gap between measurement and reality isn't by accident. It's where recessions hide until they're too obvious to ignore. And that's exactly what we're feeling right now. When the NBER eventually declares this recession, and they will 6 to 18 months after it started, it won't be news. It'll be confirmation of what anyone paying attention already knew. Eleanor already knew, not from reading economic reports, from living in the economy, from noticing her grocery bill kept rising even when inflation was officially under control, from noticing the job market was strong but her company froze raises for the second year in a row, from noticing her credit card balance kept growing even though nothing dramatic had happened, just the slow accumulation of months where the math almost worked. Eleanor's lived experience was right. The headline numbers were also technically right. They were just measuring different things. Now you know which one to trust.